Okay, we're starting.
Okay, good morning, folks.
Sorry, I'll let you know. It's preparing
Okay.
the loading meter. And now.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for bearing with us through those technical delays. You know how it goes. But we are so excited to have you here with us. Shout out to everyone that's joining in on their lunch break if you're on the East Coast. If you're coming in from the West Coast like I am, good morning. We have such a special, amazing conversation with the incredible Stefanie Brown James. Today, I'll be your moderator and host, Shane Bernard, on the Afrotech team. And this is just a small preview of the types of content and programming that we do every week with Afrotech Insider. Before we jump into it, just drop a one in the chat just so I know that you guys are here with me. If you have the Afrotech Connect app, you should be able to just drop a one in the chat. Let us know where you guys are coming in from. Drop a one and what city you're calling in from. We love to see who we have in the room today. All right, I see some engagement in the chat. That's good to see. Okay, fantastic. So, as I mentioned before, this is part of the Afrotech Insider Experience. We do this type of programming every week just to make sure that our audience is informed, engaged, and prepared for the challenges that exist in our world today. Today's session is called Before You Vote, Your Playbook for Informed Civic Impact. And I want to be clear about what this is not. This is not a politics lecture, and nobody's here to tell you who to vote for. What you're getting is a practical playbook for people who care about their communities and what engagement and want their engagement to actually count. Uh, Here's why this room matters. The policies that we've been seeing in the news, whether it's AI regulation, data centers, taxes, tariffs, they get decided by elected officials. And most of those officials that are elected and the lowest turnout races on the ballot, and not necessarily the ones that get the most coverage. Most of us experience politics as like a one-day obligation in November every few years. But in a lot of Black plurality districts, the primary is the reelection. Uh, we want to make sure that we are engaged year round, not just 1 week, 1 month, every 4 years. Uh, and that's why we bring Stefanie in today. Stefanie is that is the whole bet behind Stefanie's work. Black political power has historically shown up in surges, big turnout around a presidential race, and then quiet for years. What she's actually spent her career building is building careers, training candidates, training campaign staff, building donor pipelines. That is the unglamorous work of trying to make that power permanent instead of seasonal. So, a little bit more about our host today, Stefanie Brown James. Stefanie is a powerhouse in civic engagement and social entrepreneurship. As co-founder and senior advisor to the Collective PAC, she leads the nation's largest grassroots political action committee dedicated to building Black political power, training more than 1,500 candidates and operatives and helping elect over 600 Black leaders to local, state, and federal office since 2016. Her leadership extends to co-founding the Vote to Live Action Fund and Vote to Live Foundation, whose joint Vote to Live campaign has raised over $40 million to register, educate, and mobilize Black voters, including 200,000 new registrations and 100,000 free rides in the polls in 2020 alone. I want to take a moment and just acknowledge that is major impact and someone that we are really honored to have with us in the room today. In 2013, she co-founded Vested Strategies, a data-driven consulting firm serving corporations, foundations, and advocacy organizations, including Google, the Ford Foundation, and SEIU. Earlier, she served as the vice president of Emily's List, National African American Vote Director for President Obama's 2012 reelection campaign, and National Field Director for the NAACP, becoming one of the youngest women to hold that role. A Cleveland native and Howard University graduate. Stephanie has previously served on the board of Howard's Board of Trustees and Delta Sigma Theta's National Board. Her impact has earned her Ebony Power 100, the Root 100, and Griot honors. She is also the proud mother of two sons who inspire her daily commitment to justice and equality. Now, I have done enough talking. I will now hand it over to Stephanie and, take out your notepads. There's going to be a lot of gems dropped today, and we couldn't be more happy to have you, Stephanie. Welcome to the stage.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shane. I appreciate you reading the entire bio. It's always weird when people are talking about you, but I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with the Afrotech family. This is my first event with Afrotech. Have known Morgan for so many years, and we've always wanted to partner. And so this is a great way to be engaged with this community. As Shane mentioned, I'm Stefanie Brown James, co-founder of the Collective PAC, the Vote to Live Action Fund, along with my husband, Quentin James. We have been doing this work since 2016. So this is our 10-year anniversary year. And what better way to celebrate our 10-year anniversary than talking about politics and why it's important for us to be engaged civically as Black folks who care about our communities. We're going to have time for Q&A at the end of this, so please don't forget your question. If you need to put it in the chat, go ahead and do that. This is just a quick little rundown of what I'm going to cover today. We're going to talk about the midterm elections. We're going to talk about why primaries are important. How does money work in politics? What should we be considering when it comes to looking at candidates that we want to elect in our communities? And then again, we'll have some time for some Q&A. All right, so quickly, who writes the rules when it comes to tech? Tech policy is big right now. From AI in our daily lives and in entertainment to data centers that are popping up across the country to who does and doesn't have broadband access. Somebody is making a decision on what policies impact our day-to-day lives. And at the end of the day, when we're talking about politics, it all rests on policies and policymakers. We have a saying at the Collective PAC: to change the laws, we must change the lawmakers. We also have to make sure we are choosing leaders that respect, reflect, and represent our communities well. And so that all begins with the primary election process. Now, some of this may sound a little elementary. We're just going to go through some of the basics because, as we know, policies in a lot of states have dictated that we no longer have civics educations in our classrooms. That was a policy decision. So the primary election is the election in so many places across the country, from local to state to federal races. We see elections being decided by the primary. What does that mean? That means that people are running to say they want to represent their party oftentimes, or they want to represent a specific position. They're running in the primary election to see who gets on the general election ballot in November. Well, in some places that we know may skew overly Democratic or Republican voters or independent voters, they have a lot of leverage in the primary process by who gets elected. But let's all be clear, as we're now starting to get out of primary season, the last couple of primaries are in the next few weeks here in August. By the end of August, we'll be out of primary season, really focusing on the midterm elections, which will be in November. Why is the midterms important? The midterms are very, very, very important because this is where we get to see what our congressional makeup is going to look like, where we have governors that are elected, where we have local and state officials that are elected. We have judges that are elected. The midterms is when we are choosing the decision makers who oftentimes are the ones who are most directly creating policies that impact our day-to-day lives. And so look, the reality of where we're at is that Black voter turnout has gone down significantly, especially since 2008, 2012, when who was on the ballot? Okay, Barack Obama. See, I wish I was in like a classroom or like a setting where I could actually see you and engage, but that's okay. We're going to act like we're seeing each other eye to eye. Black voter turnout has continued to go down since 2012. And in fact, in 2022, it went down 10 points. It went down another 6 points in 2024. These dates are important because these were mid wait, 22 was a midterm election year. 24 was a presidential year where we should hopefully see numbers go up, but they have gone down. And part of the reason, and there's a lot of reasons, we're not going to get into all of it today. I can already tell you this session is going to need a part two. Less than 10 cents goes to Black voter engagement for every $1 that is spent on white voter mobilization. Spent by who, you may ask? That's spent by campaigns, that's spent by independent organizations, that's spent by advocacy groups. And so when we don't invest in Black voter turnout, Black voter engagement and voter registration, we will see our numbers come down. But there is an upside to it, a couple of upsides. One is that there's a lot of organizations and groups like ours that are working year round to make sure we can get those numbers up. But also, if you look at how important your vote is, listen, if you don't vote, that's still a vote. That's still a vote. Because if you're not voting, then that means that my one vote actually carries a lot of weight because your vote has become null and void because you decided not to vote, or there was a reason why you didn't vote. And we're also seeing a lot of energy. People, unfortunately, sometimes when you have negative policies, or people are upset about policies, that can kind of spur voter engagement. So we're seeing some changes happening where I feel pretty confident, very confident that we're going to have good voter engagement numbers come November. But it's important to one, understand like who is actually on your ballot. Why certain positions are super important to support, who the candidates are, evaluating exactly why someone might be the best candidate for you to represent you and your communities. So we'll talk about a four-lens framework of how you can judge candidates. And also just the importance of staying involved year round. Elections is not just about election day. It is not just about early voting. It is about being engaged throughout the year by knowing the players and the policies that are impacting your day-to-day life. All right, so moving forward, know the game. All right, elections are bigger than just the presidential elections. When is the next presidential election coming up? That's right. 2028 is the next one. But we're focused on what? The midterm elections that are just around the corner. So what's really at stake when we talk about down ballot? You may hear that term down ballot elections, down ballot candidates. That means that we're talking about the folks who are running for statewide offices. They're running again for local offices. As I mentioned, in many districts, the primary is the election, depending on what the voter makeup is of that area. We know we typically see only a fraction of voters come out for primary elections versus November. So that, again, that little group that may be voting in the primaries may not be as big as a general election. So they have a lot of weight in that primary vote. And many times we see down ballot races are decided by only, a few hundred votes or so. And again, the thing I want to most impress is that I hear a lot of times people will say, well, I don't know who all these judges are, or I don't know, like, why should I vote in the midterm when it's not about the presidency? These are the folks who are shaping, what our school curriculums look like. When is your trash picked up? What is the water quality like? So these local and state races are extremely important for us to pay attention to. All right, moving on. So who actually makes the decisions? Local level, we have our city council, we have our mayors, we have our school boards. When it comes to housing costs, policy budgets, when it comes to, again, I mentioned before, school curriculum, what type of budgets do school boards have? What kind of teacher pay do we have? Teacher pay impacts our kids, and oftentimes the resources that can be in the classrooms, local contracts. We have a lot of small business owners. If you are a small business owner, you really need to care who the city council and mayor are, because they make a decision on who they are giving contracts out to. But then we have our judges, we have our district attorneys. We know that the criminal justice system is not just for Black people and people of color and low income people, and the list can go on and on. I say that all to say that judges and prosecutors and district attorneys and the judicial system has a lot of weight into what cases are being prosecuted, what is the bail policy for the community, how does civil rights get enforced within your area. And so judges are the ones on the ballot that you cannot just skip over. And then state legislature. These last few months, we have seen, especially with the continual eroding of the Voting Rights Act, with the Louisiana versus Calais decision in Louisiana a few months, impacting Louisiana and nationwide a few months ago. State leges have a lot of power. And what body of government do you think has the least proportional amount of representation when it comes to Black people? You can put it in the chat. I just said it, state legislatures. We have a long way to go to reach the parity that we need to have and the equity that we need on the state ledge level. A lot of folks are running for those offices, which is great. I think that's actually one of the fastest growing places where I see Black candidates, but we have a long way to go. In the state ledges, we know taxes, healthcare, voting laws is all being decided by folks who are in the state legislature. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about PACs, super PACs. You may have heard of hard money, soft money, because I think it's important for you to know how money moves throughout this process. We at the Collective PAC, Political Action Committee, when there's a PAC, the amount of money that we can receive in contributions is capped. An individual cannot give us more than $5,000 a year into our PAC, into any political action committee. However, a super PAC can raise unlimited amount of money, but they also cannot coordinate with any candidate's campaign. So for Collective PAC, we train candidates, we help them with staffing identification, we help them connect with donors, we talk to them about their strategy. That's actually a big part of our endorsement process. Talking about their strategy, how can they raise money, what is their win rate? So we can do that kind of interactions with candidates directly in their campaigns. A super PAC, you cannot do that at all. You can't have any coordination with the campaign. A lot of times you'll see super PACs paying for political ads on TV. So say at the bottom, paid for by such and such super PAC. Both of these vehicles are transparent and have to report to the Federal Elections Commission. Any contribution over $200 becomes public record. And so you can go on right now, Google Collective PAC, or we also have a super PAC. You can Google and see who has given contributions, where are they from. Now, we operate, again, both. We're the only Black-led organization that is doing it at the scale that we're doing it. Not on this slide, I do want to mention 501c4 organizations, which is another vehicle. And again, that's why I said we're gonna have to have a part two of this because we can go a whole session just talking about that. But when you hear about hard money versus soft money, essentially there's two separate rules for what that means. Hard money, just like I mentioned, that would be your PACs. That would be contributions made directly to candidates. Again, those are federal limits that have been established of how much you can give to a candidate, that is regulated and fully disclosed. Soft money can be the money that is raised outside of those limits, like again, a super PAC. Also, it is unlimited, but again, there can be no coordination with the campaign. Now, when we say hard money, hard money and soft money, sometimes people will say for soft money, that is dark money, or why are they giving, why, especially in the AI, there's a lot of AI firms, and why are they giving all this money to help this candidate? Where is the money coming from? Because when you have a C4, you do not have to disclose who your contributions are coming from. And so because of that, people feel as though the soft money or dark money, sometimes that is called, which I actually hate that term. It shouldn't be called dark money, but that's neither here nor there. That money, we don't know who is behind the money. And so that makes people feel a little weary of like, wait a minute, where's this money coming from to support your race? Either way, give some money. Give some money. I know you got a little bit of pocket change. Some of y'all have a lot more than that, especially if you're in tech. It is important to give your contributions directly to candidates and campaigns and PACs because that is how they fund their races. And as we see, even now, a U.S. Senate race can cost upwards to $100 million to run a race. Jamie Harrison raised over $70 million in South Carolina and lost his race to Lindsey Graham just a few years ago. Won't go into more detail there, but it is important that we give money to candidates to support their races. Now, how do we evaluate the players who are vying for your support as a voter? I am asking you to do some research before you go to the polls. 30 minutes, that's all you need. Thankfully, there's some cheat sheets and guides that'll help you to be able to do that. Pull your sample ballot. If you go to vote411.org, it'll show you where you put in your information, your zip code. It'll show you your precinct. It'll let you know these are some. This is a sample ballot for you to review. Who are the candidates on the ballot? What are the ballot measures on the ballot? Because again, we're also voting on issues as well. A lot of times you'll see tax levies or, schools or bonds, and all of that stuff is on the ballot. So do your research before you get into the booth so you have an idea of who you want to support. Also, Ballotpedia is a wonderful resource online that shows you candidates that are running in specific races, gives you information about those candidates. A lot of times they also do questionnaires, so you can read their policy decisions on there. Visit candidate websites, definitely. You can visit FEC.org and get information on candidate donors. Read the local news. This is a time when we really want to have trusted resources. And so this is not a time for all the viral stuff to be your primary point of information when determining who to support or what issues to support. Go to your trusted resources for the information. And now we also have a lot of candidate forums that are taking place, a lot of debates that are taking place. Even if you can't attend in person, which is great to do, check them out online. Most of them end up on YouTube or on a candidate's website. Now, this is just some general ideas of when you're thinking about candidates, what should I be looking for? Policies, their background is very important. A caveat to this is, especially around the policies, because I have on here, what have they voted for versus what have they built or what have they said. We have a lot of amazing first-time candidates that may have never been involved in elections or politics, or, they don't have a policy platform that they have implemented and gotten voted on. So I'm not saying that we should not support first-time candidates. We definitely should. But there are other things in their background that you should look at to see, do they have the experience to lead, and are they ready to be a decisive voice when they get into the body of office that they're trying to seek? Do their priorities match the community's priorities? Is this person of the community? Do they know the community? As I said, do they respect, reflect, and represent the community well to be able to now become a decision maker for that community? And can they explain, child, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? Also, do they even know what they're running for and what that job even does? Because the number of times I can tell you, I've talked to a candidate who says that they want to have fireworks in the sky every night. Baby, you ain't got the money for it, and that's not even your job. Okay? So you shouldn't be running for that office. Okay? It's important to know yourself, what does that position do? And is this the right candidate for that position? Policy debates and forums are important because, how do they respond when they're under pressure? Check out who's on their campaign team, who are their advisors, who are some of their donors. Do they have a sound and strong and team of integrity around them? What is their community impact? Have they ever shown up and done things before for the community? Are they already, a school board volunteer? Are they the ones in the community that are making sure that the trash is getting picked up and holding people accountable? To look at the background of these folks. And also, as I mentioned, where is their money coming from? Is all their money coming from outside of the state or outside of the city? Do they have local folks buying in by contributing to their races? All of that information matters when you are evaluating a candidate. And you can also go to for example, with the Black candidates, you can go to collectivepac.org where we have our endorsed list of candidates. We've endorsed over 100 candidates. We have more that are coming all across the country on a local, state, and federal level. Look for endorsements. If you are part of a labor union, who has your labor union endorsed? If you are a part of a fraternity and sorority, now they cannot endorse candidates. They are 501(c)(7) organizations, so they operate more like a C3 organization, which is completely nonpartisan. But a lot of fraternities and sororities now have 501(c)(4) organizations, or they have their own PACs that can engage in identifying candidates that they want to support. At the end of the day, we want you to stay involved year round. You should constantly be looking at what positions are becoming available. The amount of positions also that nobody runs for is outrageous. And then people end up getting appointed into seats. And I know you know some good people out there, if it's not you yourself, who has thought about running for office. Yeah, think about it, research it. Is it right for you? Maybe, maybe not, but I bet you know somebody who is, so that we don't have so many offices that are going unseated. Volunteer on a campaign, give money to a campaign. Every amount helps. Even if you give $20 a month through a recurring donation, maybe to an organization like collectivepac.org, I don't know. Just kidding. Whatever one floats your boat. Make sure that the recurring donation is something that you set up, because $20 every month goes a long way. I'm not going to do the math, 20 times 12. It goes a long way. It's a lot of money at the end of the day for that organization. And please consider running for office or finding someone who can run for office, who can represent us well, or also wants to work on a campaign. Because another area where we have a lot of need is to diversify the campaign staff, especially of Black candidates and candidates of color, to get more senior level Black folks into positions on campaigns. All right. I think that is where we will end today. Before we get into the Q&A, I know I covered a lot and went through a lot quickly, but I am hoping that we can have a little bit of dialogue. Even I guess I'm dialoguing with the chat, huh, Shane? That's fine.
The chat is here. I have questions from the chat and they are
Okay.
excited. They have questions for you. So we can get into it. But first, give a round of applause to Stefanie. Drop a one in the chat if you loved, if you learned something today. And on this slide here, you can see all the information where you can follow her if you want to continue the journey and just stay informed of what she's doing, which will, by proxy, make you more informed. And I think that's kind of where we want to start off the Q&A, Stefanie. Information, access to information. When you look on the news tends to dabble in the sensationalist, right? If you're trying to find out what's happening in the world, you're more likely to see what crazy thing the president tweeted, as opposed to actually figuring out what's happening down ballot in your community. So can you give people some information on how they can stay informed? How do they even find out about these races and who's running when the mainstream media oftentimes isn't even covering it?
Yeah, and I think one place that's good to start is what is an issue that you feel really passionate about? Like for me right now, I have a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old. So when it comes to all things school policies, that is a big thing for me. What the curriculum is in our schools and how our schools are funded and all that stuff. So I'm really paying a lot of attention to the school board. Because of that, I am going to my school's website to see who are my school board members. All right, there's an election coming up. Who's running for school board? Let me check them out. Go to their campaign sites, research them. But also, school funding is decided by state legislatures. So let me look. Who's my representative from my local district? Who's running for office for my local district? Do they have policies about education? So I would start there of what is a policy importance to you. Now, generally, also, you should know who your mayor is. You should know who your city council member is. And you can go to the official websites of, the county or the city, or the individual folks who are in those positions. But do research year round, because we always are having some type of election for something that is happening. And so, yeah, that's where I would start.
And that's amazing. So I heard, going to your school, the school's website and finding out the school board, checking the .gov websites for your state and city to kind of figure out those deadlines as well. Uh, in your slide, you did talk about uh, doing researches in batches of 30 and even maybe group chats. Can you talk about just what a group chat looks like? How do those types of communities form? And if someone here is interested in saying like, hey, you know what, I'm going to start the group me so that my city or my parent friend group can stay involved. Can you give them some tips and resources on like how they can take that initiative and what that could look like?
Yeah, the number one influence a lot of times that we see on why people vote certain ways is based off of who is validating that person or who's giving you information about that person. And we like to have trusted messengers. And so I even think about my line sister group chat, which most of it is not ready for TV. But there are a lot of times when we'll have conversations in our own group chat where someone will get some information that they've gotten from a credible resource and they've shared it with just our own individual group chat of folks that are trusted messengers for us. Hey, I saw this article. I think you all should check it out. Even just starting where you're at with your own circle of influence is important. But also, um, you know, I can think of Representative Chantel Brown as my congresswoman in Cleveland. Um, Not only does she have a lot of community forums, I follow her Instagram faithfully because she puts out a lot of information about what resources she's bringing into the community. She's asking questions, she's doing live IGs. So I look to her also as a resource, as my elected official who has done right by our community so far, that I've been able to get that information to also share with my folks. So just even getting your own crew, sharing information. That's why a lot of times people will say, hey, who are the 5 people that you want to be responsible for making sure they go vote? I have my 5 friends, and I'm gonna call them. Hey, have you early voted? No, you ain't done it yet. All right. Don't forget, early vote is about to close. Hey, election day is coming up. Don't forget. So start with your own community, and then you can kind of build from there.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. I think I've heard Michelle Obama share a similar sentiment, right? Picking your top 5 around election season. And I think that speaks to where our audience is. If you look at the Afrotech community, I'd like to think that the people here who have spent their morning joining this session are already registered to vote and are civically engaged. And they're looking on like, okay, I vote. What's that next step? It sounds like your first step is start with being responsible for 5 other people and maximizing your impact that way. Uh,
Mhm.
let's let's talk about people who already do that, right? What is the next step for them, right? So if you are someone that votes every election, you share things on Facebook, you're sharing things to your parents, you're even maybe even volunteering or something on election day to make sure that you're involved. If someone is like, look, I'm doing all these things and I still feel helpless, what is that next step that you would encourage that person to consider pursuing?
I think, and listen, the helpless feeling it's a real one. Especially as you mentioned, Shane, earlier, when you hear and see so much craziness that surrounds politics. I think it's important to see what policies are being passed in your own community, um, to be able to see, wait, is progress actually happening here, or is it not? And if it's not, then can I have a say so by picking different individuals to become the decision makers to make better policies for my community? Um, I think that's what that research part is for. And then sharing information goes a long way. And I don't want to keep sticking on that point, but it is so important to share information with your people. And then the last thing I would say is to, you know, there are I think about a race, for example, in North Carolina a few years back for the North Carolina Supreme Court, state Supreme Court. There was a woman who won the race by 734 votes out of 5 million votes. Like that's one big apartment building. It's 754 people. And it took weeks for for that to come back, but she won, and that shows you like when we say every vote matters, every vote really does matter and adds up. And um, I'm excited by young people's energy as well. I think being able to um, talk to folks who are just 18 or, getting ready to vote for the first time and seeing their energy is also gives me a lot of hope. Um, so yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I want to shift to a question that just came in the chat. It sounds like this person is actually considering pursuing running for office. Their question is, how can we find out about the open positions or the unfilled positions prior to election and what the requirements and pay would be?
One wonderful resource I mentioned earlier is Ballotpedia. On there you can see, let's say you're interested in city council. You can go and see who's running, who you can see who ran in the primaries, who's running on a general election ballot. You can see election results. Um, you can from there automatically click on candidates to see their own websites. You can see, hey, wait a minute. It said that this position is vacant. Nobody is running for this. All right, let me look into that position. Your state secretary of state's office will have information on specific races that you can find the requirements of what it takes to file to run for office. I want you to think about um, the pay piece is important. And again, you can find that information there. Campaigns can cost a lot of money, and it definitely costs a lot of time. And so making sure that you have the time to spend talking to potential voters, that you have the time to fundraise, to call people to ask them for money to support your race, that you have time to think of what are some of the policy decisions that I want to make. Am I an informed candidate? And then also seeking out support from organizations like a PAC. We have an endorsement process where we ask people to fill out a questionnaire because we want to see where you stand on policies that impact the Black community. And from there, we work to support you by giving an endorsement, hopefully writing a check to you as well. And so there's people that can have your back. But yeah, it's no joke running for office. But as I mentioned, we have so many unfilled seats and opportunities to serve. And even if you don't want to serve in office, go to your local city, figure out are there commissions, are there committees that you could sit on or be a part of? Is there an advisory committee maybe that the mayor has that you can be a part of? Have a conversation that set up a meeting with your mayor, city council. You should meet with them face to face, let them know your names. Would be some, I think, ways that you can also get involved past just voting.
No, that's amazing feedback. And guys, if you are interested, I just dropped the link to ballotpedia.org in the chat. So everyone, before you leave, make sure you check out that website and try to learn 3 new things before you close your workday today. I do want to shift gears really quickly. We talk about how to pursue opportunities and run for office. Let's talk about evaluating candidates for a second. I just survived a very bloated California primary where there were 60 people who ran for governor, and it was very stressful trying to figure out who's walking the walk and who's just talking the talk. If you go on everyone's websites say the same thing. We care about saving the working class and supporting communities and workers, and we love the environment. But how do you cut through the noise and really figure out who has actually done the work and who is just pushing talking points to win votes?
Yeah, I mean, I think you actually hit on it that, it's important to see what have they done before. How have they served and showed up before for the community? Is this the first time that they've ever stepped foot in the Black community or in your neighborhood? And I don't mean that quite literally, but have they shown up for communities before? What leadership skills do they exhibit? Have they been able to get the support and endorsement of organizations that you value and that you trust? That's why I think, especially when it comes around economic issues, you look at the labor community who takes it very serious when they give endorsements to candidates. Um, I would also say, and I'm gonna put a caveat around your political party as well. because political parties do have agendas. I think it is important to see who it is that your party may be supporting, but also make sure you're checking out the other candidates as well. And look at these debates, look at these community forums. The again, you can probably go on YouTube to see a lot of them if you can't see it in person. See how they're responding to questions. Um, but past experience and leadership, I think, is a good indicator when you have, especially so many people that are running for an office or who seem to talk a good game, but like ain't nobody vouching for them. That could
Right.
speak volumes.
100%. And I know that we have to get you out of here, Stephanie. So I'll close with this final closing question. There's been a lot happening in the news, especially around redistricting, and people kind of feel a little bit slighted or discouraged by that. But I want to end on a note of optimism. What are you optimistic about when you look at the political landscape this year? And any closing words that you have for the attendees in the room today?
Yeah, I'm super optimistic by the primary election turnout that we are seeing. Even, post the Louisiana Calais decision, right after that, we had primary elections in Louisiana in so many districts and so many specifically predominantly Black areas. We saw increased voter turnout. That makes me hopeful. I'm also super hopeful to have so many Black candidates that are running statewide. We have governors, senators. We have the potential to double the number of Black women senators currently. So that gives me a lot of hope when I see that. This is the most amount of endorsement applications we have ever received in our 10 years at the collective. So that means people are not shying away from running for office. That makes me hopeful. And then also, my son said the other day, somebody asked him if he was in this family organization. I won't say the name. He says, "No, I'm not a part of that organization. I'm a part of the NAACP and the Collective PAC." He's 10. He's 10, and so that also makes me really hopeful that, we have kids out here who are tuned in to it has to be about more than just me. It has to be about community. And I think that is a super hopeful place for us to be because also some of these leaders are getting real old or they're already old. And no, I'm not trying to age shame. I love the elders. Elders are cool. Old folks, if you ain't about progress, just know that there's generations behind you that are ready to lead and to serve. Visit collectivepac.org for more information and to support.
Amazing. A great philosopher once said, Whitney Houston, the children of the future.
That's right.
Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope everyone took away a few nuggets from this conversation. Feel free to follow Stephanie on the chat. And before you leave, this is just one example of the amazing content we do on Afrotech Insider every single week. Last week we had someone from Google talking about building AI agent workflows, and then today we have someone talking about the future of civic engagement and civic impact. So feel free to sign up for Afrotech Insider. It does come with a free ticket to Afrotech conference. So if you're interested in attending the conference, your insider membership will get you to Houston as well. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Please enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and we hope to see you at the ballot boxes in November, as well as year round. Thank you, guys.